This is the Be One Change One podcast, where our mission is to help listeners define values, practice integrity, and inspire change.
Our vision is to mentor men and empower them to achieve more by taking responsibility for shaping their own lives.
He's CAS, an evolving man who has been shaped by adversity and continues to grow through his imperfections.
And he's Roscoe, an imperfect work in progress that tries to suck less every day.
Between us, we have over 40 years of Air Force fighter pilot experience with countless hours as trainers, instructors, and mentors.
Join us and learn to take responsibility for your own life as we dive into subjects from leadership to resilience to vulnerability.
Be the one who changes their course. Be decisive, driven, and purposeful. Set the example for others. Lead. We wish we'd had this show when we were younger men.
Be the one.
What is your go-to in New Orleans?
Well, everybody loves the beignets, right? And the seafood here is pretty good.
Yeah, seafood's good.
I'm not a big New Orleans fan personally. Yeah, so
Blasphemy.
I do. I mean, you know, the food here is good. I don't know if I have a go-to. The lobster rolls are really good. You know,
Shrimp
the
po'
jumbo
boys.
or jambalaya is really good here
Yeah.
for sure. And then everybody likes the beignets, so that's kind of probably what I would go for.
Yeah, I like all the soul food and Cajun food, man. That,
Yeah, it's
like,
good food.
big old bowl of gumbo and some cornbread, and
Yeah, I don't mind spice.
yeah, gosh, it's so good, man. The shrimp po' boys. There was this place down there that Katie and I used to go to, and man, just juicy. That shrimp just melts in your mouth, and I don't know what they batter that shit in, but
Yeah, it's good.
it's so good, so good. Yeah,
Everything's
Looking
better
forward
with
to it.
butter and grease.
yeah,
Right on.
including your
All right,
arteries.
brother.
Awesome. Yeah.
What we got going today?
So this idea struck me the other day. I was listening to a podcast, and I was listening to Mike Rowe talk. And for the listeners, Mike Rowe, he used to have a show out years ago called Dirty Jobs, and that's kind of where he, I don't know, built his fame, I guess, and,
Yeah,
and built
I think
kind of
so.
his platform. Yeah, was
Yeah.
sort of being that advocate and that champion for the blue collar kind of people out there. You know, the
Yeah.
people who do the nasty shit that maybe we don't talk about all the time. And I thought it'd be neat to just kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit and talk about what it is and what it isn't, and some of the stereotypes and myths and stuff that might be associated with some of that.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, dude. What he was talking about, and honestly, man, I'd have to go back and look at my history to even see which podcast this is. I don't follow. I got like 3 podcasts that I follow episode to episode. The rest of them, I usually search for something
Yeah.
and then click on it. And so
Sure.
I might be listening to, Jim Bob's Blowhole podcast, but he's got Mike Rowe on, and I wanted to hear what Mike Rowe had to say about this topic. And he was the thing that really stood out to me, man, was he threw this stat out there. He was telling the story, and he got recruited by this company to come in and do like a top-down review because this company, they were building either battleships or submarines, something like that, like it's giant projects, right? And they couldn't find enough electricians and welders. And so they bring Mike Rowe in to do all this research and look at their stats and look at their whatevers. And he says at the end of it, they go, so we have scoured the internet and the Indeeds and the LinkedIns out there. We can't find the welders. Where the fuck are all the welders and electricians? And Mike Rowe said, simple, man, they're in 8th grade. And the guy was like, what? He goes, yeah, like the generation that's here, that's right now in the workforce, they've been sold this bill of goods, probably from our generation and down to maybe the high schoolers, have been told, oh, you need to go to college. You need a 4-year degree. You need a master's degree to be successful and all this shit. And now it seems like it's starting to come back around to where, being a working class family and going out and doing some of these jobs is not taboo and not uncool.
Yeah. Well, and I think, if you go back and listen to our The World Needs Stitch Diggers 2 episode, I know that we had some statistics on there that talked about, over the next decade or so, the vast shortages that are going to be in the trade industry as far as, the demand versus the number of people that they have to fill those roles, whether it's electricians or plumbers or welders, diesel mechanics, all those types of things. So there's definitely a need there. And I think I'll disagree with you just on one perspective, and that's that I agree with you in the sense that I don't think that college is for everybody, right? And some people don't have the opportunity, right? Some people just straight up can't afford to do it, right? And the trade schools and things like that tend to be more economically viable to go through. They're shorter, they don't cost as much, and you can come out and get a decent job because you have a required skill.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bottom line in all of this, right? We talk about this all the time. You got to find a skill. You got to find a way to set yourself apart. You have to have something that you can use. You have to be able to add value in a certain way. I do agree with you too, in the sense that, I think over time, especially in the last probably, 2 decades or so, there has been this big push kind of culturally in society and from society that, you have to go to college in order to be successful in life. And that's obviously not the case. You and I both know people who didn't go to college and, have been very successful, whether they, started out as a baseline plumber and started their own plumbing business. I know a gentleman that did that. I know another guy that started out as an electrician and then he opened up his own shop, and he wasn't doing electrical work, but he became a supplier, and he has made very good money doing that and a very good living doing that. And so there's definitely niches that you can find. And then, I met a guy on an overnight one time. I was in Panama City, Florida, on the beach at a resort, and sat down. I was having dinner, and this guy and his wife sat next to me, and we started talking. This guy was from like New Jersey, had worked in waste management his whole life, but had started when he was young, worked his way up into the management side of that, and had made a very good life for himself. And his wife had, because of that work that he did, was able to put all of his kids through college. I mean,
Hell yeah.
just an amazing story, right? I think where I would disagree with you is I would say that part of the reason that society and cultural emphasis on education is there is because it does matter, right? Depending on what you want to do, there's
That's the
certain
key.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So depending, not to shake your finger at you, but depending on what you want to do, it may be a prerequisite, right? And then you can get into conversations of, does it matter where you get the degree from? Again, I
Yeah.
think it depends on what you're trying to specialize in or what you may be trying to do. It can. I think in most cases, not really, but it can, and then that gets into the whole kind of difference between, bachelor's versus master's now. And
Yeah.
that's a whole other conversation. But society does, in certain industries, for certain positions, for certain things, just like you and I, man, in order to be officers in the Air Force and to be able to fly fighter jets, what do we have to do? We had to get a 4-year degree.
You got to.
And so
That's just to open the door.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
just to get an opportunity, right?
That's
and
right.
so there, I would say, depending on what you want to do, there are things where you need to go to college for, and if that's the path you want to go on, then you've got to figure that out for yourself. That said, if school's not for you, and there's a lot of kids out there who, they're not interested in that 4-year education, but you have a specific skill set or something that you're interested in the trade field, dude, go pursue it 100%. Because here's a perfect example. We were just having breakfast the other morning with the kids because they just started college back up, and a couple of their friends, and one of their friends, her boyfriend, I think he went into machining after he went to a trade school for machining, like machine shop, not machine shop, but like,
He's a machinist.
machining parts and stuff like that. And it was like a 9-month course. And then he got hired on by a company. And now he's like the kid's like, I don't know, 21, maybe 22. And, he's like in charge of like one part of the shop now. And he's making like, $80,000, $90,000 a year, and so here's a kid who has no student debt, has probably been making anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 a year for the last, let's just call it 3 years. And then you got my 2 kids who are lucky that they don't have any debt because I'm paying for everything. But if I wasn't, they'd be piling up $30,000, $40,000 a year in debt to go to school, and have no money to show for it. So it's definitely a path for people. But I do have some BLS, which has been in the news, and labor statistics department.
Yeah. Well, hold up though, because I want to stay on something you were just talking about, because I can actually speak educated to one piece of this. What you're talking about, where your machinist friend, that's an apprenticeship, right? And many of these trades, if you go to either a trade school or if you get hired on by a company and they put you, part of that job offer is an apprenticeship, then it's a process, right?
Yes.
And so you start out as basic, and then, you're an apprentice, and then you're a journeyman, a craftsman, and then a master. And it takes time to work through those wickets. So he's probably up into the journeyman level. And that's really where you kind of really understand the job enough to be like super functional at it, and you're starting to learn some of the supervisory type things, and maybe you get a small team to lead, or your own truck or something like that. Nikki's very, very close to that, although in what he's doing, it's not formal, it's very informal, and I think that personally sucks. I would like to see it a little more formal, to where he can put it on a resume one day that, look, I was a craftsman level
Yeah.
X, and
Yeah.
that is mirrored in the enlisted Air Force ranks.
It is.
Specifically in the job that I was in, I started out as an apprentice crew chief. Once I got all of my stuff signed off, people watch. It's the you do one, you see one, do one kind of thing to get these items signed off in your training plan. And there's a lot of self study, and then there was tests involved. The career development course, the CDCs, you had to do that. So it's pretty comprehensive. And once that was all done, it took about 2 years. But once all that was done, bam, now you're a journeyman. Also, about the time I made some rank, became an NCO, and then they sent me to 7-level school, and I became a craftsman level. And so now I'm like, aside from being the daddy pants sitting in the office, I was still on the line with the bros, but I was kind of, the supervisor, like the foreman type level. So that's sort of the process for a guy who goes into a machinist, an HVAC, a plumbing,
Yes.
something like this,
Well, even
electrician.
aircraft maintenance, right? AMEs, things like that.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those guys come from the military because they have such great experience. And one thing that I would like to say for the listeners out there, especially for our younger listeners, if you are in a position maybe where you'd like to go to college, but you don't have the means or the opportunity to do that, and you're kind of struggling with what to do, and you don't really know if there's a trade out that's out there for you, dude, military service is a great way to go. 4 years of your life to come out with a skill. You may find something that you really love. You may find a career path that you really love, and you get all your GI benefits after serving that 4-year term, and it gives you time to make a little money, save a little money, have an opportunity to be exposed to a bunch of things, learn some discipline, learn how to function in an organization, and it'll give you a lot of great experience that will be completely transferable to whatever you choose to do. Plus those GI benefits, the GI Bill benefits are just second to none. What you can do with those if you do want to get an education down the road. So I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, well, and allow me to pile on for a second. Something else that you said a little bit ago that goes hand in hand with this is, if you're one of those undecideds at the end of high school, this is opinion, okay, and I'm sure it's backed up by metrics somewhere, but if you're an undecided, the worst thing you could do is go to college and waste a bunch of fucking money, because you don't know what you want to do, and you're going to end up getting either a degree in something you don't like or you're not interested in because somebody told you to go, or you're going to get a stupid degree that doesn't pay when you're done. And these, people go in and getting their liberal arts degrees and stuff because somebody told them to go get a 4-year degree. Well, that liberal arts degree isn't going to earn you enough on the back end to pay for the actual college.
Yes, and I have some statistics on that if you want to go through like the top earning degree programs and non-degree programs and things like that.
Yeah, shoot.
The other thing, I'll do that for this. The other one thing I want to say to younger folks out there too is, don't be afraid to take a gap year. I think I wish there were it's not mandatory service, but I wish that there were more service opportunities for young people to pursue after high school than just signing up for the military. I wish we had more organizations in our country where you could go and sign up for a year or 2 years to go do service related stuff, build relationships, grow up a little bit, get out of the house, figure yourself out, be exposed to a bunch of different things, figure out what's really important to you. Like those will help you define your values in certain ways too, and then make a decision. So I think gap years can be really good for people that may not know what they want to do, because it gives you just a little bit of time to kind of go through that process and figure it out. So
I would encourage that person to still be very proactive and intentional about your gap year.
Absolutely.
Anecdotally, I have a friend who, their son is the same age as my youngest son, and he took a gap year that's still ongoing 3 years later, living in the basement, and I asked him, like, well, what does he want to do with his life? Oh, no, all he likes doing is riding dirt bikes. Well, he's either going to have to figure out how to make money riding dirt bikes or come up with something different, because
that's right.
They parent different than I do. If that were my kid, he'd probably come home one day and find his shit in the driveway, but that's a trap. That that gap year can be a trap. So you need to be very intentional about it and use that year to your advantage, doing something like what you just said,
Yeah.
volunteer, go try some new shit. I knew, I know a couple of kids who have taken a gap year, but they worked like 4 different jobs
Sure.
in that gap year, and they're just exploring,
Yeah. And when I say take a gap year, I don't mean sit in your fucking bedroom and game all day, and eat pizza. Like you
Yeah.
have to get out there and explore some things, and try to figure out maybe what it is that you are good at or what you may be interested in. It's not just time to waste.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
for top earning majors, if you want me to go through this,
Yeah. Throw some nerdage at us.
yeah, this is some statistics I found, and it's from a bunch of different inputs. It's from a bunch of different organizations that track this kind of stuff. But I guess New York Federal Reserve identified in 2025, the Federal Reserve in New York identified 19 majors with median mid-career salaries of at least $100,000, and it's largely engineering dominated.
Good
So if
stuff.
you're
Yeah.
like me and you were told there would be no math, this might not be a path for you. But aerospace engineering was at the top. Approximately $125,000 a year is what you're going to make in that mid-career 35 to 45. Computer engineering was up there too, electrical and chemical engineering, mechanical, and then finance and economics were all above in that kind of 110K to 125K range. Then it was like electrical engineering, computer engineering, pharmaceutical sciences, again, chemical and aerospace, mechanical, and industrial and materials engineering. Early career, people that do pretty well are computer science at about $76,000 a year for the average. Engineering starts around 74. Certain business degrees about 60. Some of the humanities around 50. But like petroleum engineering, computer science all do really well. The highest earning major pay scales in 2024 with a bachelor's degree, not a master's, just a bachelor's. Petroleum engineering, $212K a year was the average. Operations research and industrial engineering at $200K. Computer science with some combined programs at $192. Building science, applied economics and management, actuarial mathematics. I didn't even know that was a fucking thing. At $168. Optical science and energy at $166. Quantitative economics and operations research. So those are some ideas around kind of those higher end salary ranges. If you don't know what you want to do, but you're good at math and you want to be a baller, then maybe that's what you look at, right?
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
So you said that you mentioned mid-career 35 to 45. Is that the age group?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So presumably it takes you, say, 5 years to get a degree in bio.
Yeah, these are bachelor's degrees.
Gasoline
so you're coming out
engineering or whatever you
23. Yep.
All right. So you're coming out of there at, say, 23 years old, right? And by 35, that's 12 years later, somewhere in that 35 to 45 range, you're making $125. All right. Now let's flip that to what the military looks like right now. You go through 4 years of college in an ROTC program. 2 years of that's going to be paid for by the U.S. government. You get commissioned as a second lieutenant. And where are you at the 12-year point? Well, you're probably looking at pinning on 04 pretty quick. That's going to put you over 6 figures, especially if you're married and you got dependents and you live off base and things like that. And then by the time you're right in the heart of that 35 to 45 year range there, you're going to pin on 05 and then be looking towards retirement. You're going to be comfortably in the mid 100s, mid 6 figures there. And then you can retire with a lifetime pension. So that's why I'm not terribly against people serving in the military for a full career.
Yes.
You mentioned that 35 to 45 was air quotes mid-career.
Yes.
Implying that you're in the middle of the bell curve and you still got, like, you're halfway there, right? You still got 15, 20 years to work.
That's a great point, Roscoe, because boys and girls, we're here to tell you, because we've both done this. The advantage of having spent 20 years in the military is you get out at 42, 45, and then you start a second career.
That's right.
But you have a full pension.
Get mailbox money.
Yeah. And so your check of the month club, where you're getting a check every month for your retirement from the military, that's just additive on top of whatever do post-military service.
That's right.
Or what you choose to do as a career. So it is a great path to go, man, if you can get out the 20, because it's a huge benefit. Not to mention, the VA benefits that you get, the medical benefits that you get. They're awesome.
Well, that's not to say that it's not a hard life. It is a hard life.
It is.
You're
It's
constantly
demanding.
moving.
Yep. It's hard
You're
on
on
families.
deployments. It's hard on your
It has its own
relationships. It's
pros and
hard on your
cons.
body. It's hard on your
Yes.
mind. It's hard on so many things.
Hard on your liver.
It is. It's hard on your health for sure.
Yes.
But there are some really good benefits to go with it, and this is why I would encourage an 18 something who's out of high school that doesn't know what he wants to do with life to give it a shot. For all the reasons you already mentioned, and even those people who did go to college, go give ROTC a look. Because, I mean, you know what? Worst case, dude, if you make it through the ROTC program, they pay for 2 years of your school. You owe them 4 years as a commissioned officer, and then you get the fuck out. And you're 28. You're 27, 28 years old. You still got your whole life ahead of you. You haven't even hit this, what Cass said is mid-career yet.
Yeah, you haven't. And you have a lot more maturity too. So, you know, if you do choose to go to college at that point, it's probably going to mean more to you. You're probably going to be more effective at it, you know, because you're going to have a little more discipline. You're going to have a better ability to, you know, come up with game plans and set your schedule and manage all those pieces.
Be disciplined to go to class.
You'll have much better focus is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
One of the other things I was just going to point out was Bureau of Labor Statistics, which has been in the news lately. Bullshit, by the way, according to me. Maybe not Roscoe.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Data.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Trump fired the BLS guy because the last economic earnings report that came out, he didn't like the numbers, so he fired him.
Is that why he fired him?
Yep.
Or is that what the narrative is?
That's why he fired him.
You've spoken to him personally about this?
No, but dude, the BLS they don't make numbers up. That's why they do revisions. You know, I mean, it's just
that's true.
They just report economic data, and that's one of the pillars of why the U.S. economy functions so well, and why so many people put capital into our economy from other countries, is because by and large, those are always things that are not partisan and are a pretty good indicator of where the economy's at and where the economy's going, and people trust that stuff. Anyway, sorry. But BLS in 2024. So this is median weekly earnings. If you've got a doctoral degree, the median weekly earning is about $2,300 a month, which seems low, but you know, that's over a wide spread of different.
$2,500 a month?
About $2,300 a
week. $2,300 a month?
$2,300 a week.
Oh, a week. Okay.
A week, yeah. And realize that could be anywhere from, you know, a doctorate in medicine or psychology or economics to, you know, education.
That's 120 a year.
Huge disparities between their pay, right? So, but this was interesting to me. The unemployment rate is 1.2%. Master's is about 1,800 with a 2.2% unemployment rate. Bachelor's is 1,500 with a 2.5% unemployment rate. When you get to associates, it's the first real significant drop, like down to about $1,000 a week, 2.8%. Some college no degree is about the same as an associate's, 3.8%. And then high school diploma, about 930 at 4.2%. And then if you have less than a high school diploma, 40 at 6.2%. So what those numbers tell me, obviously, right, you're going to get paid more based on relative qualifications. So that's the first thing to take away. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to go get a doctorate degree. It's like what you said, right? If you decide to go the trade route, you know, move up those scales from apprentice to journeyman to craftsman to all that stuff, right? Because you get paid on what you're qualified to do. But the interesting thing about those statistics to me was that how each step up in education corresponds to lower unemployment. Because it's like we were talking about before, dude, if you have skills, if you have a specific skill set, that's valuable to somebody. And it's much easier to find a job when you have a specific skill set.
You're specific and you're marketable.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So you're adding value in that way. So anyways.
Also, those jobs are there's probably fewer of those jobs than there are, say, I don't know, trash men or laborers on a construction crew, right?
Right, but what's interesting is the unemployment rate's still lower. Does that make sense?
Yes. No. I get that. And it's what do they say? There's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. So you can probably twist these any way you want, which is good though. But by the, I imagine it like a sort of like a pyramid, right? And at the fat part of the pyramid at the bottom, there's all the labor type jobs, because there's millions and millions. In fact, I'm looking at something right now about Mike Rowe. Says there's a 7.2 million person gap in blue collar labor related jobs. And he doesn't give any specifics and break it down
to what those jobs are.
Yeah, and who knows where that number came from? I haven't read the article, but then when you get up to like doctor, there's definitely not 7.2 million. There's not a gap of 7.2 million out there. You know what I mean? So the guys who are hunting those top level jobs, they're super competitive, which drives you to want to do very well so that you can stay there. They had Nikki's crew the other day had the operator, the guy who drives their heavy equipment or whatever. He made a mistake and they fired him. They had another operator there by the end of the day, right? I don't think you get that with a doctor. I don't think you can just fire a doctor and have another one there by the end of the surgery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's probably a little more of an intensive job search at that level.
Yeah. Now, while I read those BLS statistics, here was something I found interesting that was from that previous group, kind of where they brought a whole bunch of data and statistics together from a bunch of people, a bunch of organizations that track all these different things and kind of collated it. And this goes specifically to your trade school comment. Average starting salary for trade schools is about $36,000 a year, right? Which would make sense. An apprenticeship, depending on what your qualifications are, you're probably looking in that $36,000 to $50,000 range is what I would guess for
your low man on the totem pole, your
plumbers, electricians, all that kind of stuff, right?
You're probably a single dude living with a couple of dudes in an apartment. Yeah.
Okay, so pay attention to this. Program costs around $33,000. That's the average to go through that a trade program. Okay,
for the company to put you through it.
For anybody, whether you pay for it, a company puts you through it, whatever. The average median cost, and again, this is an aggregate of all the different trades, right, is about $33,000. Most students come out with a loan debt around $10,000. Employment rate within 6 months is 87%.
That's good.
That's wicked good, right?
That's because there's a 7.2 million person gap in those kinds of careers.
Let's look at that compared to a bachelor degree. So bachelor's degree starting salary, it's a little higher, about $51,000 a year. And again, that's the average. If you go into education or something like that, it's going to be lower than if you go into finance, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But your program costs are $127,000. And so the program costs are 4 times. The average debt is 3 times higher. And the unemployment rate is slightly higher at 4.5% for people when they first come out in that first 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Unemployment rate for trades is about 3.7. In that first 6 months, unemployment rate for bachelor's degrees at like 4.5%. So, I mean, there you go, right? It's just, there's nothing wrong with trade school. You get faster entry to workforce, lower debt, good short-term returns. Bump up depending on which route you go may not be as fast for earning potential over time as it if you had gone and gotten a bachelor's degree in, engineering or finance or one of those. But that's not to say that it wouldn't be either, depending on what you do. You start your own business, you're going to be making more money than, the dude that's sitting there on a computer with a slide rule trying to figure out how to make a Boeing 7.
Well, maybe if you don't know shit about business.
Well,
no, you won't.
Again, yeah.
Well, I mean, but this is what we're talking about, right? This is all relative, and this is the kind of the social media trap, is I can't tell you how many times I see on Instagram about, oh, hey, well, all I did was buy 1,900 vending machines and now I'm a millionaire, Well, dumb shit like that. Just here's how I started my business and made 7 figures the first year. Dudes, that is not fucking normal. Okay.
That's lucky.
And that guy has probably been working on this for 20 years.
Yeah.
And he's not telling you that part, right? There's very few examples of an overnight success out there.
Yeah.
Most overnight successes take 10 to 15 to 20 years. That's overnight success in the modern age. And if you want to be Andy Frisella and have a 9-figure company, it took him 25 years to build that company. And that's 25 years of like 20-hour days, 7 days a week, hustling and grinding, bouncing fucking checks, living off a credit card, sleeping in the back of your car. Like, That's
Stressing
fucking,
about a lot of
it
things.
is, man.
Yep.
It's tough.
Trying to
Like, you
keep
don't
it
just,
afloat.
you're not going to make 7 figures flipping Air Jordans on YouTube like this
Yeah.
fucking influencer says you can. All right. It's just
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Yep. Yep. And a lot of, if you talk to successful people and they're honest, most of them will tell you that they also got really lucky in certain spots along the way. So there's
Most
luck
people
and
get a
timing.
bump here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, luck and timing still plays
Yep.
a role, right? Because, think about it, dude. You may have had a baller idea for a business that you started, and maybe in the first year it was crushing it and you were feeling good and everything was looking rosy, and then fucking COVID hit.
Ooh, yeah.
And could you survive that for 2 years?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I heard a gentleman talking the other day that happened to him. He had started a business. It was very successful. It was in the finance sector. They were doing really well. COVID hit, dude. Buttoned up in 6 months, gone.
It's tough.
Done.
That's tough.
Right? And so sometimes, luck and timing, life has other things to say about the best laid plan. So
Yeah. Well, the market changes, people's taste changes. If you're making a living off of selling green shirts and all of a sudden somebody comes out with a blue shirt, I mean, and a lot of those things are unpredictable, which is why you have to stay on top of it. It's not like I know we've said this before at some point, but success isn't, you don't own success, you rent success. And rent's due every day, motherfucker, and you got to get out there and you got to, you got to pay your dues.
Well, and I think that's, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's hard. That's the whole point, is like there's no easy button. And every one of these paths, it doesn't matter if you want to be the entrepreneur who starts a 7-figure company, if you want to go and, make a $1.25 as an engineer, or if you want to join an apprenticeship, all three of those paths are difficult. They're very fucking difficult. It's not, selling Girl Scout cookies. That's not what we're talking about. Like, this is fucking real life is hard.
It is. Yeah. And what I would say too to people that may be listening who don't know what they want to do is try to find out what you're good at. Try to find out where you may have some skills, right? Some skills that may set you apart, that may make you a little bit better than the guy next to you. And then figure out where those skills can be applied in a manner that, you can pursue a job that will make you economically viable, that will give you some economic stability, that will give you an opportunity to provide for yourself, to provide for your family, to start to set yourself on a path where you can have some economic resilience and stability and viability, right? And to be able to take care of yourself and the people that you love and your parents eventually and all those types of things. Because, I get it, right? A lot of people will say, you got to love what you do. And life is definitely a little more pleasurable when you do. But I'll tell you what, man, if you can find something where you can make a good living and you're making good money, life is going to be pretty good anyways. When you don't have to worry about making ends meet, you're not worried about paying bills. There's so much stress wrapped up in that, and the stress that it puts on relationships when you have, financial stresses in your life, that you'll be on a good path. So, if you don't know what you want to do and you don't know what you love to do, then find out what you're good at and then pursue something that highlights those skills.
Yeah.
That would be my encouragement.
As you were talking and the word marketable came in mind, where you were talking about find something you love. And I thought, man, you got to be able to market that. You got to be able to sell it, right? And so I just Googled over here. I Googled marketable passion, and Google says a marketable passion is a deep interest or hobby that can be leveraged to generate income by providing value to others. It sits at the intersection of three things: personal enthusiasm, unique skills, and an existing market need. And that's the key right there. Is I love playing guitar. I'm actually not bad at it. I'm a lot better. I used to be a lot better than I am now because I just don't practice anymore. The problem is I'm not willing to put in the work that it takes to make that commercial and make money at it, right? It will always be a hobby for me. And that's, no different than playing golf or basketball on the weekend with my kids.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you said earlier is really important too, which is, like this goes back to the messaging that we believe, in those cultural and societal influences that we get, right? Where everybody's supposed to be a baller, everybody's supposed to be making 6 figures, right? You're supposed to be a millionaire by 25, whatever it is for you, right? And most of that stuff's just bullshit. So it goes back to some of those things that we talk about with defining values, and like you've said this a million times on this podcast, Roscoe. You got to define success for yourself.
That's right. Before we even started, I wrote at the top, success is user defined.
That's right. And so here's a perfect example. When I was a kid growing up, I used to race slot cars, which most people probably have no idea because I don't even know if they exist anymore. But when I was growing up by our house, there was like this slot car track, and not like the little ones, but they were like, I don't know, decent size.
Are those things we used to make in Boy Scouts?
Yeah,
like
kind of
racer?
Like Pinewood Derby, but
Pinewood Derby. Yeah.
But but these actually had motors, and like there was this big track, that was, I don't know, probably 60 feet long by 30 feet wide, that had windy corners and chicanes on it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 8 slots, and you put your car in the slot, and then you had a controller to control the speed on it, and you'd race around. There was a gentleman that I met through the course of that who was very successful, and he loved slot cars. He'd grown up driving them. It was all he cared about. So you know what he did, dude? He started a business in his basement, and he machined the frames. He built the little plastic bodies that people could paint, or he painted them up, and he was like the major distributor for all of the slot car stuff on like the West Coast. And did it all out of his basement, had 2 employees, but that's talking to, but that was success to him. Success to him was, that's what he was passionate about. He was obviously smart about business, and he figured out how to make it work. But I can't remember what he did before he started doing that stuff. But, he eventually started his own business in his basement and got it to where it was sustaining his lifestyle and made a pivot. And he had a very successful life.
Well, I mean, how many of these types of stories are born out of either a failure or a hardship? Like we just interviewed Bruce not too long ago, who lost his job during COVID, and he realized, hey, well, you know what, man, I really enjoy this writing thing. I like entertaining people. Let me see what's up. And now he's doing very well at it.
Yeah,
but
I would say so.
But that's a very hard road. I mean, it took him 10 years to get a deal. It took him another 3 or 4 years to hit the bestseller list. Like, this isn't overnight shit.
No, well, and not only that, but like we talked about on the podcast with him, the amount of courage and courage over comfort that it took for him to go, I don't have a job, but I'm going to take this next 6 months because I know I can float myself for that amount of time, and I'm going to finish this book.
Yeah, I'm going to figure this out.
And see what happens, right? Like, dude, that takes a lot of courage.
And probably
whatever you choose to do, folks, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, it will.
It's going to be uncomfortable for a while.
And that's what I was going to say, was probably he and his wife are probably the only 2 people that know how many late nights he stayed up, how many times he deleted that paragraph and rewrote it, how many people he sent it out to with his fingers crossed, hoping they wouldn't laugh him off stage, and I mean, it's those kinds of things are difficult, dudes. And I mean, if you want to be like, I was just, before we got on here, I was watching Kill Tony, and some people are giving Tony Hinchcliffe some shit because he's got the #1 podcast in the world right now. What they don't realize, and they say, oh, well, he just blew up because of the Tom Brady roast. You don't realize that he was grinding fucking 10 hours at night in a comedy club for like 15, 18 years.
Yeah, for years.
Right? Smoky ass rooms. And, it infuriates me sometimes when people throw that around like it's no big deal. Like, oh, well, you only must be nice. Must be nice to just be an airline pilot and sleep in clean hotel sheets every night, Cass. Motherfucker, you don't have any idea how long the road was to get to where some of these people are.
Yep. That's very true.
It's good. So I think we hit the stigma pretty well, and that's a decent transition into kind of the, dare I say, second half of the topic here. And that is, there is a bit of a stigma around who performs these jobs. And so far, we've been talking about a lot of jobs who are largely male dominated, and the stats back it up. Guys, you can fucking hate on me for being misogynist or whatever, but I mean, the stats are there. There's not a lot of chicks lining up to be bricklayers and HVAC technicians.
Yeah, or plumbers.
It's just a fact, and it's a good discussion to talk about, male and female traditional roles, however you define that, whether it's, a religious base or societal base or whatever. But the fact is, in our society right now in America, there are jobs that are predominantly male dominated, and there are female dominated jobs. Most of your hospitality type things and nurturing type jobs tend to go more female. Most of your labor and hard work, knuckle busting type jobs tend to go more male. Auto mechanics, anything that this is going to sound bad, but anything that requires grease under the fingernails, dirt under the fingernails and scuffed knuckles is probably going to be more of a male dominated jobs. That's not to say that the women aren't out there doing that. I knew plenty of female fighter pilots and chick crew chiefs. They're there, right? But in a shop of 45 crew chiefs, we had 2 females. Like, it's just, I mean, it is what it is. Now you go across the street to the finance office, and out of 40 finance airmen and sergeants in there, you might have 5 males in there. It's just different.
Yep. Yeah, well, and what the statistics show is that the labor force participation rate for women has increased substantially, but most of that movement that has been male dominated in the past is in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's mostly in STEM, and it's mostly in educated, in those areas where education is important, where a bachelor's or a master's degree is kind of a prerequisite to hold those types of positions. And that the statistics also bear that out, right? Women are graduating at a higher rate for the first time from higher education than men are, by a rate of about 60% to 40%. So yeah, women have surpassed men in college completion rates. 59% of bachelor's degrees are awarded to women compared to 41% to men. They also earn the majority of master's degrees and doctorates. Roughly 55 to 60% of all graduate degrees are going to women. But again, it's in most of those STEM, legal, healthcare, and STEM areas.
How do you get a doctorate in making me a sandwich
at the trade school? Oh, dude, what?
Come on. Oh, Roscoe, can't take him anywhere. Yeah,
way to bring it down, Roscoe.
Well, you get all serious in there with your decimal places and shit. No, I actually was looking at something over here too. According to BLS, in 2022, women made up a bit more than 58% of the labor force, but only 6.5% of the women worked in male-dominated career fields, and that kind of illustrated my point just a little bit.
Yeah,
and what you say is valid, man.
I think there's moving in that direction.
I think in 2025. There's probably not a lot of people out there anymore. They're like, oh, boo, women in the workforce. Like, most people are like, I know in the military, we were just like, whatever, dude. Can she fly the fucking airplane? I don't give a shit.
Exactly.
And I mean, and I was in, when I was in the TACPs, battlefield airmen, we're out there humping and pumping. There was a big push to get women in the career field. And I got to sit in on some of the meetings, and they asked me for my opinion. And I said, look, man, here's the deal. Like, I don't give a fuck. The locker room is the locker room. It is what it is. What you can't do is you can't lower the fucking standard.
Yeah.
Right? Not in that career field. And this goes for this. I mean, and I know the SEALs and Special Forces have gone through this. They've gone round and round on this in the last few years. You cannot lower the standard, because I know that 10 dead hang pull-ups and 100 push-ups can pull me out of that fucking hole by my body armor. I don't know that 65 can. And that's the problem. If that chick can do 10 dead hang pull-ups and 100 push-ups, hell yeah, go for it.
Sure. Yeah. Totally agree. Part of the issue, I think, that you see too, why you probably don't see women going into some of those more specific labor intensive trade programs too, is just for that reason, right? Some of it is just what they value, what they choose to be important. And so again, you've seen most of that movement for them in those educated fields, and specifically in STEM. And some of that could go to, I mean, I've got all kinds of statistics here on caregivers and kind of how that stuff has shifted over time, the societal roles between men and women. But yeah, I agree with you, dude. Like, there's certain professions where, and I think that's true in most professions, right? Where whether you're a finance organization and you kind of have a standard for your C-suite people, or like, everybody kind of sets a standard, whether that standard is as obvious as it is in certain fields in the military, as it is in the business field, or, in the legal or healthcare, who knows? But anyways.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it just made my brain like make a connection here. And so you just mentioned the C-suite, right? And I would encourage people that when you're starting out, I wouldn't think about that personally. Like, I don't know that I joined the Air Force wondering about how to make general. Okay. It was more about what's a little bit more right in front of me. What's the next rank? What do I have to do to get my 5 level, my journeyman classification, or certification? And so when you're starting out, I wouldn't worry too much about air quotes glass ceilings or the perception of the C-suite or anything like that. I'd focus on getting your foot in the door and making a good reputation for yourself, because you can always maneuver, right? And just like what we were talking about earlier when we said the price for even opening just to unlock the door to get into to flying jets in the Air Force was a bachelor's degree. If you don't have that bachelor's degree, the key doesn't even turn, dude. You cannot open the door. It's impossible to do this, right? So I would say focus on unlocking the door, and then focus on walking through the door. And once you're in the room, you can choose which seat you want to take, right? But in the beginning, make some of those critical decisions without that being part of the calculus.
Absolutely. And then once you start, just like you were talking about with the different levels, from journeyman to our apprentice to journeyman, etc. Dude, you need to focus on building your skills. You may think you're ready for something bigger than where you're at, but you don't necessarily understand what all of that may entail, right? And so the best thing you can do is have some awareness, build your skills, become the best at whatever it is that you're doing. And that will open up that opportunity. That will open up doors and opportunity for you to then progress. And then once you move up, dude, then, it's just like when we were in the fighter squadron, brother. When you're a wingman, you focus on being the best wingman you can be, right? When you're a flight lead, you're the best flight lead you can be. When you're an instructor, you're the best instructor you can be. You just focus on where you're at, build those skills, continue to refine, get a little better every day, and opportunity will show itself.
So I just pulled this up. I need to find the exact stat here, but it said this is off of CNBC, and this is talking about Gen Z. So all you young kids out there, 1 in 4 people take one of their parents to a job interview. 1 in 5 people had their parents write their resume for them and submit the job interview for them. I'll just throw this out there, dude. You don't have to worry about a glass ceiling or a C-suite if that's where you're starting. Right? If you're starting at 20, 22, 25 years old by having mommy go into the interview with you.
Mommy do it for me. Yeah.
Then you don't have to worry about C-suite shit.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get the fucking job.
Well, you're not grown up enough to do.
That's right.
To get a job.
You haven't earned it.
It's time to grow up. Start doing some shit on your own. Welcome to the real world. Figure it the fuck out.
That's right.
Let's go. Right.
That's right.
This is that the process exists for a reason, and it's for you to get some experience and figure it out.
Yeah.
So
I was listening to this book a while back on Audible. God, I can't remember what it was. It'll come to me in a second. But I do that all the time, by the way. There's too many fucking ping pong balls in my brain right now. But anyways, it was they were talking to Kobe Bryant, right? And he was talking about deserving victory. And part of deserving victory is you have to put in the work. Like if you don't, this idea of either half-assing or not showing up and then coming into game day and expecting to win, that's right the fuck out, dude. You have to put in the effort. You have to put in the work and practice and off the court to be able to deserve the victory on the court. And really where that really manifests is when you get down to the fourth quarter, man, you find out who put in the work, because when we start talking about professional level sports, the margin of victory is so fucking small, man. Like a good day in the NFL, you score 28 points. That's a good day. That's 4 fucking touchdowns. That's 1 touchdown every quarter. Like one in 3 drives results in points. That's a good day. Well, a professional baseball player strikes out 2/3 of the time, and he's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
like his batting average is going to be 330 or above, and he's going to go to the Hall of Fame by hitting the ball 1 out of 10 times or 3 out of 10 times. Like this is fucking crazy, right? So the margin of victory and the margin of success is so small at that level that if you don't put in the work, man, you're going to be highlighted. And I think we can take a lot of lessons out of that. So if you're not willing to do the work early on, then you don't deserve the C-suite. You don't deserve to bless through that glass ceiling.
Yeah. Well, and I think it speaks to use your NFL example too, right? It speaks to opportunity to a certain extent as well, because in a standard NFL game, you may have 60 plays. between the two offenses, maybe.
Gosh, I don't know. What's Google say? Go ahead.
But yeah, let's just call it 60, right? So over the course of one game, you may have 60 plays. There's probably 3 or 4 plays on either side that are the difference between winning and losing, right? Being able to recognize and capitalize on an opportunity once or twice during a game where you bust a, you're going to be able to bust a coverage or throw that deep ball or spring the running back for a long gain. Like there's 3 or 4 plays probably in a game that are the difference
Well,
between you getting the W and you getting the L. And it's the same in life, man. You're going to see opportunity. And that's why we always emphasize, like, dude, yeah, seize opportunities. Like, look for opportunities. Be present in the moment where you can recognize opportunities in front of you, because you never know where those are going to lead. And if you're too afraid to take advantage of those, you're never going to move out of where you are.
so Katie and I, a few years ago, I'm going to take your example. I'm going to take it one step further, and we're going to get even more detailed, right? And this is why, since I was a coach, I can't watch football the same anymore. And it sucks sometimes, because sometimes I just want to be a fan. It's the same with writing. Now that I've written books, it's very hard for me to be a fan and just go talk to an author as a fan, right? I want to ask him how he does it and what's your process and all this stuff, rather than just be his buddy and, get to know him. Anyways, so Katie and I go to the Rose Bowl a few years ago, Bama playing Michigan, right? Michigan ends up winning the game. They end up winning the national championship. We all know the story, but what you don't know, probably which nobody recognized, was in the fourth quarter of that game, Bama's up. We're winning the game, and we've got them stopped on like 4th and 18 or something, or 4th and 8. All right. It's 4th and 8. Holy shit, dude. One freaking stop, and this game's over with. We take a knee. We go home, and we're going to the natty, bro. Right? The outside linebacker, they end up doing a sort of like a sweep play to the field side, not the boundary side, the wide open field side. They were on the left hash, and they ran to the right. So the wide open part of the field. The left outside linebacker, he bit on the fake and took 2 steps inside. And that was enough to let that running back get around, and he made the first down. They go to overtime. They lose the game. We're talking 2 fucking steps because he bit on a fake. He was a little over aggressive. He didn't have good eye discipline. He didn't play his assignment, and he was out of alignment, right? That's the fucking level of detail, and that's the margin of error. 2 fucking steps lost him a chance to go to the natty. And so now take that to a life scale, right? And you're talking about, from the time that you're 18 to the time you're, say, 30 or so, 12 years, you're going to have maybe 4 or 5 really important critical decision points. And I know you and I have pointed to those over the course of this show, and the 115 or so episodes that we've done, we've pointed to a bunch of those, right? If you make the slightest error, or you give just a little bit less effort than you could have, that can be the difference. And that has a ripple effect through your whole fucking life. And you're sitting here at 60 going, why the fuck am I still taking out the trash? Why can't I retire? Why can't I go live on the beach? Well, it's because your dumbass didn't do the right thing, or you misread the coverage, or you just didn't give the effort when you were 23 years old. That's really where it comes down to.
You were too afraid to take the risk.
Also valid. Yep. Yeah.
So
crazy. You got any more numbers you want to throw out there?
No, I think that's good for what we've talked about to this point.
Dude, that ended up being really good. I do want to bring this up, though. I'm going to talk about, before we close, I want to just talk about the Micro Works Foundation, and that's sort of the foundation that he set up to encourage people to go and do this. And he points back to quite a few years ago, the education system. I don't know whether it was the federal or state level, how it ended up happening, but essentially they took like wood shop and auto mechanics and shit. They took it out of high schools, right? Yeah. And that has led to a lot of this, or at least been a contributing factor to a lot of this. So he started up this kind of as a side project. And what he does is he essentially raises money, and he has competitions, and he does scholarships to get people into these apprenticeships and stuff. I really like it. According to this, it says his mission is to promote and support skilled trade as viable and lucrative career paths, which is exactly what we said. And every one of these, if you just Google micro dirty jobs, it pops right up, and it's got links to all these articles and stuff. So if you're a young person and you're thinking about any of this stuff, or you're just unsure of what you think you might want to do with life, this is a good place to start. He's a good dude, and I think he means well, and he's pointing people in the right direction.
Yeah, his heart's definitely in the right place.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
It is.
So, what else? You got anything else, man?
That's it, man. Be the change.
All right, be the one. Thanks for flying with the Be One Change One podcast. If you got something out of this show, then be the one and share it in your circles of influence.
You can be our wingman through our website at www.be1change1.com. That's B and the number one, change and the number one.com.
We invite you to be the one and join our fighter squadron on social media at Be1Change1 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can follow us at Paul Roscoe White on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as Roscoe's website, www.paulroscoewhite.com.
You can email us from the website and please leave comments, share, and ask questions, or leave ideas of things you would like to discuss on future podcasts. Most importantly, be the one that helps us win the algorithm by leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Thanks for joining. Until next time, be the one.